Alrighty, so this is new. I have been encouraged to make videos before by friends and family on how to do motorcycle maintenance, specifically for the BSA Victor, Shooting Star, anything with the B441 engine. This also works for B25s and Triumph TR25s. I am going through, I'm having a little bit of an issue on this one here. So I've actually got two. They're both 68s and 68 Shooting Stars initially. This blue one here is my most recent one, and I'm having an issue with either the clutch or the gearbox. I believe it's the gearbox though, as the second gear is not working, but it does work in first and So gonna go ahead and show you how to remove all the primary and the gearbox as well to inspect that. And then when I put it back together, I'll go ahead and show that as well.
Okay, so here we've got the primary cover already removed, primary gasket already removed. That's pretty straightforward. I think you guys can figure that one out. However, so this is the primary here. You've got your stator, your rotor. The stator could also be called your alternator on this. And then this is your clutch basket with your pressure plate. And then behind it on the stock motor, you have four friction plates and 5 steel plates. So to get that out, normally this is safety wired because these do have a tendency of backing out. So once you remove these 4, now typically I just like to use, and forgive me because I'm doing this one-handed so I can film as well, I just like using a big screwdriver. I'm pretty sure there's a special tool for this, but then you just unscrew that. Oh, and by the way, I should mention I've already got the clutch lever disconnected, so there's no pressure on that clutch there. But then just go and remove all 4 of these. So I will get back to it as soon as I've got that off. Alrighty, so got the springs removed, and you pull that pressure plate. So there's your adjuster and the nut, and so that essentially puts tension on your clutch push rod that sits right there in the middle. And I'll show you that a little bit more in detail when I get to the other side and pull the timing covers. But yeah, so what you're looking at here is you've got your, again, apologize because I'm doing this one-handed, but essentially that's what you're looking at. You've got your friction plate here on the back side, and then you've got your steel plate up front. And that just sits in there like so. I'm going to pull all of these out, and according to the Rupert ratio manual, you can use a magnet to pull that out. A little bit easier than just wiggling it here. Now, I've already been in here, and I swapped out these clutch plates, which were spares, just to rule it out that the other ones were the issue. See, this can be a little bit of a pain to wiggle out, hence why a magnet is recommended. But almost got them all out. Come on. All right. You get the idea though. It's coming. Eventually. Alrighty. There we go. Okay, so here's a look at the clutch basket. That all spins freely. And then this primary chain is attached to backside sprocket here that's on the end of the crank. Just so you can see how that works. I'm gonna do my best to explain this all as clearly as possible. My terminology may be off every now and again. For that, I do apologize. But we'll try to explain this and make it as easy to digest as possible. So next, we'll have to bend these tabs back here, pull that. We'll go ahead and pull the stator alternator. But before all that, remove the rear brake. And that's already loose because, again, I've been in here. I've been messing with this problem for going on 2-3 weeks now, trying to trace it down. So finally, I'm just going to put this video out here just because there's not a whole lot of information on these online. I figure it'll help someone else out in the future as well. So we'll go ahead and get this ready to be removed. We'll get the alternator out of the way, pull the rotor too, and then we'll pull the whole primary drive. So anything that chain's on at once, all at one time. So something else here too that I forgot to mention in the last clip before I started trying to work. You do need a special tool in order to hold the clutch in place. So that way you can turn on this nut to loosen it. And I do need to probably replace that washer as it's missing its tab that's broke off on me the last time that I was in here. So you can either buy one of these tools or you can sacrifice a couple clutch plates. You'll need a friction plate and a steel plate as well. And then you just make a handle. For me, pretty simple. Ignore my shitty weld. I do not pretend to be a welder at all. I'm definitely a welder grinder, and because this is just a tool for me to use, I didn't bother even trying to grind this one down. But so then you take your Whitworth wrench. This is 9/16 Whitworth. You stick it on there, and because that's pressure on there, you can break that free and pull that nut and washer off of there, and you're good to go. So the next thing now, pull the alternator and then work on pulling the clutch. So, and then that just takes a little bit of wiggling. Again, you can buy one of these tools. I probably recommend it rather than sacrificing a couple clutch plates, unless they're shot or that you're a better welder than I am, but it works. Okay, once you pull that, again, it's just 3 nuts. Now this one, the stud came out on me as I was pulling it. It's not a big deal. So essentially this is your primary chain tensioner right here. It's just these couple pieces. And believe it or not, that's still fine to use. And then you've got a spacer there. So set that off to the side, pull your rotor, and be careful when you do, because I dropped the Woodruff key. So and I am having a mess. So you do not want to drop your rotor like I just did, but again, Woodruff key. And then that fits in a little keyway underneath. You do not want to lose that. So set that off to the side where it's safe. So now that you've got your primary ready, once you pull this, there will be a tab washer and then a thick washer. You want to go ahead and pull that out. Now this is where we're going to take a break and switch to the other side. So that way we can pull that clutch push rod in there out a little bit easier. You don't want to use your puller, because you have to use a puller to pull this off. You'll pull this off at once. There's another Woodruff key on that shaft in there. So you don't want your clutch push rod in there when you pull this. So be sure to switch over to the other side. Alrighty, so we're here on the other side. In order to pull the outer timing cover off, you're going to have to do a couple things. One, you're going to want to take off the gear shift lever, and you're going to want to take off the kickstart mechanism, or kickstart lever rather. So take the kickstart lever off, and then you're also, and this one can be a pain, you're going to want to separate the clutch cable from the clutch actuator arm. So once that's free, then you can disconnect your electrical, undo all of the different bolts. These three up front are a different size. Take note of that, but then take all those out. There is one in the middle here. Do not miss that one. You'll struggle to pull it off and then realize that that's there. So we will resume here in a minute. Okay, so I've removed the nut for the kickstart lever, and I've already removed the gear shift lever, and I've already disconnected the clutch cable down at the actuator mechanism. So now what you're going to want to do, this keyway here, that's stuck in there, it's wedged in. So now what you're going to do, you're going to take a drift and a hammer. You don't want your hammer close to that case. So you're just going to knock it out. Your kickstart lever comes off, and there is the keyway I was telling you about. You can clean these up and reuse them. It's recommended online a lot of places because they do have some wear and tear on them. It's recommended that you actually replace these each time because I'm kind of a cheapskate. I'll be the first to admit it. I'll actually go ahead and reuse that. I'll just clean that up with a file for a little bit, and it'll be good to go. So, alrighty. Next thing you're going to want to do, go ahead and remove this cover. Again, you've got 1, 2, 3 bolts that are a smaller size, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 for a total of 10 bolts to remove the outer cover here, outer timing cover. So once you get that removed, then you can go ahead and actually pull that out and go from there, and I'll show that when I come back. Okay, so I have all of the bolts loose. Now you can do this one of two ways. You can either pull out the bolts and then put them in a specific pattern. I've seen people do that, and then trace the actual cover and then poke the bolts through so they know the order. Or what I like to try to do is just pull the whole cover with the bolts. Occasionally that happens. Just kind of put that back where they're supposed to go. And then you're going to try to wiggle this off, which is a little difficult. So what I like to do occasionally, now you want to be careful doing this. A lot of times I'll use a, and this is going to make a mess too. This is why I've got the pan underneath, because oil is going to spill out. What you're going to want to try to do is just very gently persuade this cover to come loose. It's a little bit cantankerous. Something else I like to use is while that drains a little bit, I'll grab this is just like a putty knife, and what I'll do, because it's a little bit gentler, slip this in here, Just kind of wiggle it a little bit and try to persuade this to come off. And yep. See, there goes the oil. And it is coming, albeit a little bit slowly. Same bolt, believe it or not. Okay. And now that it's pretty much off, I'll go ahead and push these bolts all in. Try to keep them in with one thumb on the kickstart quadrant. You just pull the cover the rest of the way. Wiggle that off and pull. And then take that cover and set it off to the side somewhere where you can lay it all out. And then, so here you can see, let me grab a rag, wipe my hands, and I'll show you guys a closer look. Alrighty, so we pulled the outer timing cover. Now this is the inner timing cover. The trick to this, so you can pull the whole gearbox out from this without having to remove this timing cover if you'd like. However, that's a little bit more of a pain in the rear. So essentially what you're going to do, you can pop this spring off. Let me grab a tool, handy dandy screwdriver. Try not to drop it in the oil. It's one more thing you got to clean up when you're done. But this is your kickstart quadrant here, and then your actual ratchet mechanism for the kickstart that engages there. So that's how you do that. There is 1, 2, you have to pull the anchor bolt for that spring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then down underneath 7 and 8. Once you pull those, then you can actually pull that cover. However, we're going to go to the other side. That's the clutch push rod. We're just going to shove that through a little bit so we can grab that, because again, you don't want to pull the rest of the primary without pulling that first. So these typically don't go bad as long as they roll straight and flat on a table. You're good. So yeah. All right, now we'll switch back to the other side. Alrighty, I apologize for the glare in advance. Working with oily fingers tends to, and I am filming this on my phone, so oily fingers tend to get in the way there. So now we're back on the primary side of the motor. You want to use your clutch holding tool again. You want to get a socket that fits that. Now, I don't have Whitworth sockets, so I'm using a 13th, 16th spark plug socket to get this nut off here. And you'll pull this socket, or pull this nut. And again, there's the nut, there's the tab washer, and then your thick washer. Once you get those off, then now this shouldn't, in theory, come off of this taper on this shaft. So, yeah, see, that's not coming off. So,
Occasionally it does, though, if you didn't have it on there tight. So then what you'll do is you'll get a, and I do apologize for this. I'm trying to find the wrench that I use. The garage is a mess right now. Okay, so you will get your puller, and you can find that online as well. So you'll thread that into your clutch basket there. And again, clutch holding tool. I don't know why I keep grabbing it and setting it off to the side when I keep needing it. So that can go on there like that. Take this is actually my favorite wrench that I own. It says Ordnance Department USA. I don't know how well you can read that with that glare, but then you put that on there. Okay. So that just popped off. So now we're done with this until the reassembly. So now the hard part, this is one of my least favorite parts of doing this job, after having done it a few times. Now you have to pry the sprocket here off of this tapered shaft. It is a pain. I recommend using tire irons, something of the sort, and just being careful of A, not messing up your primary chain here, and B, not marring the cases as much as you possibly can. So I'll go ahead and show that. Let me grab those and I'll review. This is where you have to get kind of creative, especially if you're like me. I don't have short tire spoons. I've got these long doodads, so it's kind of a pain to get underneath this. But with any luck, I'm not blocking the camera, and you can actually see a little bit of what I'm doing. And kind of just work at it. Eventually, it should pop off of the tape. Just like so, and it's looser. There we go. Okay, so now you want to pull the whole primary drive as one unit. So, and with that, you want to be careful not to lose your wood drift key that sits on the end of that. All right, I'll resume in a minute. Next, we'll be removing this plate here so we can access the gearbox sprocket on the other side. I'll go ahead and pull the chain off so we can just keep working through. Okay, so now we have the rear chain off, and this is something that you got to be careful about when you're working on this. More comfortable out of the way here if I can. So you've got 6 of these very easy to strip flathead screws. So what I like to do, because it just kind of gets loose and sloppy, just take your hammer and your hand impact and hold pressure against it, and you should
be able to get that fairly loose in order to hand turn it the rest of the way. And pull this sprocket cover. Now, something I will mention while I'm doing this is that the gasket behind here can rip fairly easily, and you'll lose your primary fluid when you are out riding. It will leak out from the back of here. So what I recommend doing is replacing that gasket if you can. Obviously, you can reuse that to some degree. Just kind of depends on how well, what kind of shape your gasket is in when you get this off. So once this is off, again, there's 6 screws. They're pretty small. Try not to lose them. And you should be able to pull this cover fairly easily. Six screws, you just reach behind it and pop that cover off, just like so. Set those screws off to the side so you don't lose them. And I'll bring you in close here. So this is your drive sprocket. Now, this is a little bit of a pain. There's a lot of different ways to do it, either holding the chain and then rotating with a special wrench that I do not have. So I'm gonna get that off best I can, straighten out that rear washer there. Didn't do a real great job, I'll be honest, of crimping that back to hold that in place, but we'll get it off and I'll show you the rest of the process. All right, I'll start again here. I've got this nut loose that holds this on. Pull that off, pull your washer off, and then this is going to be a bear, usually like that sprocket was, or can be. So again, this is where you're going to want your trusty tire irons, and you're going to want to figure out a way to pry like I said, this is a bear to do. Usually, it's like this isn't going to put up too much of a fit right now, which is nice. And that is just about off. Then we'll go over to the back side, to the timing side. Okay, so we're now back on the other side. You've got your magnetic rotor here if you are using a Boyer-Branson ignition like I am. Otherwise, you would have to remove the points advance mechanism here, I believe. I've never actually had points on one of these, so forgive me there for not having that. I'm not a fan of points, as easy as they tend to be. I don't like having to set them all the time. So for me, I love the Boyer-Branson. Little product recommendation there for you. Go ahead, and that's unsponsored, by the way. I'm just a fan of the product. Basically, the twins, you're going to want one of their twin kits, like British twin kits or triple kits, and it'll work just the same on this single. So Remove that, knock it off of its taper, set that to the side so you don't lose it. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to take out all of these bolts. And again, I actually have two different hand impact drivers, mainly because Harbor Freight special type deals and the bits shatter. So use safety glasses while you're doing this. Do as I say, not as I do type deal. Basically, and this is going to create a mess right here. That's all of the oil leaks. Now you could go through and drain all of the oil prior to this if you'd like. I'm missing the one wrench to pull this anchor bolt off. So, and be careful when you're doing this that you don't mess up this this guide here for that outer timing cover. So now there is a couple tricks to this. I'm going to set these screws off to the side for now, and then I will reinsert them into the case at a later date. I'll probably just keep these set off to the side in general until I get my new gearbox in the mail, and I will resume the second half of this when that time comes. Now there is a trick to this. You do want to do this slowly. Because the gearbox has the detent spring in the back that hooks up to the cam plate, but it's tension, right? So it's going to want to push this out, and you're going to want to kind of go slowly here. Your cam is right behind this cover here, so you're going to want to keep pressure on that cam when you pull this plate, because if you don't, it's going to knock the cam out, and then you're going to have to retime the motor instead of just doing the ignition timing. So that is my advice. I'm just going to pull these bolts, and then you pull that cover. So that one kind of goes above here, and then this last one goes up here. Now again, see that's already starting to pop back. So just push that in. Alright, so now it's all going to drain out at once. Let me grab my rag here that I have a very bad tendency of setting stuff down when I'm working and then not being able to find it right away. But that's part of working on these, anything, right? But, so now we'll pull the entire gearbox out as one unit, and then you can go through and diagnose and figure out what's going on from there. And again, keep the pan under it just so you don't have to worry about dripping oil all over the place, like I kind of am right now. So I'm gonna go set this down and we'll resume. Alrighty, so I apologize about the lack of space and moving over here, but I'll show you hopefully a little bit more of how this gearbox functions. And you're not supposed to drop that. Alright, this is proving to be very difficult to film with one hand and show you how this functions. So let me see if I can't figure out a way to set this up so that you can see as well. Alright, take two. Alright, so now we got the gearbox sitting here. How this works, if I can kind of get it back in here, I'll show you exactly what I'm kind of talking about. Okay, so being a real pain, but we're gonna get it. We are going to get it. And this is a messy process right here, because I'm trying to keep the shaft aligned, or the hole aligned to go through. Okay. All right, so we're back together now, and everything is looking good. So essentially, as you're moving this cam plate right here, that is how you shift. So you're looking at first being all the way down at the bottom, right here. So first gear right here. Then you've got neutral, second, third, and fourth gear. So we're having an issue here at second gear, and it might be related to the flat spot on the cam plate. Just looking at this. I don't, because it's pretty flat right in here. Try to show that a bit. I don't know how well you can see that, but so I'm gonna pull this apart, and in order to pull this apart, there is a cotter pin right back in here. You pull that cotter pin out, and then there is another pin that goes in this way, and you're gonna want to pull that pin in order to move the cam plate out, and you can pull the cam plate out with the shift forks in the back as well, and that would be right here. And if I could get any grip, you could actually pull that out. So yeah, I'll get this disassembled and show you how it goes together. All right, so at this point, I'll admit gearboxes are not my specialty. I'm still learning a lot about them, specifically on how to make sure they go together correctly and work properly. That being said, there's only one way to put this there's only one way to put this gearbox together. So unfortunately, the second gear, which is right here, That one, every gear on it is, or every tooth on it is looking good. I don't see how there is an issue with that. The only thing would possibly be that snap ring down in there is loose, but I wouldn't think that would cause any issues, considering that slide gear goes in there just fine, and that shouldn't be causing any issues with second on the lay shaft. Now the next bit would be the main shaft, which is right here. So fourth is actually still in the motor. This is your sliding gear for the main shaft, which is second. This is second on the main shaft. This would be fourth gear, still on there, so it's your top gear. Your second, and all the dogs look good on there. There's a little nick here on all these corners, but other than that, this gear I think looks fine. Plus the teeth are all looking good. The dogs look good. These are the dogs. So I really don't think that second gear is necessarily the issue that I'm having here, but I will have to keep you posted on that. The only other thing that I think could possibly be the issue, and I had hinted to this earlier, so right here, right down here, so that is considerably flattened, and part of that is me having filed on it to get rid of a bad burr that was there. However, if we flip through the Rupert ratio manual, and that's looking like it could be a little bit more pointed. There is a better one here. So I have to go through and figure that out and figure out why, if maybe that's the issue. It's just jumping out of second gear. Alright, I'm going to attempt to show how, if I can't hold the camera here with my legs, a little bit of a pain. So, got the shift forks here on the cam plate. So, first gear was aligned pretty well. And then as this slides, so there's neutral. Doesn't have a whole lot of play there either, right? But then it comes up here to where second is. There's no play on this one, on the right side. But then if you look on the left side, there's a lot of wiggle room. And that is a spot where it's worn. There was a burr there before. I filed that down. Filed that down and tried to round it off so it wouldn't catch there. And I think now that might be the reason why I cannot select second or get into second. Could be wrong. But then, like as the rest of it goes, there's not a whole lot of play in any of the other gears. So, except fourth, there's a little bit of slop, but was not having any issues with fourth gear, only second gear here. So I don't know why that wore like that. We'll see. So until I get the new gearbox and I'm probably going to upgrade the clutch components as well. We'll have it in a state of disarray here at the garage, but we'll get this one back up and running properly, especially now that it's starting to get warm again. I'm
I'm excited for some good riding weather, and hopefully going to get some trail riding in this summer on the blue BSA desert sled here. So we'll keep you updated, and as soon as those parts come in, I'll throw together a video on what the root of the cause was, or what I thought it was, and if the new parts address the issue. But I hope that this helps anyone else trying to get into the gearbox, or even to take the primary off to change out the gearbox sprocket or anything of the sort. Just there isn't a whole lot of information out there, and so I figured I'd throw something together. All right, enjoy. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.